will call the meeting to order and thank you all for attending this evening. As you know, we have 2 items on the agenda and we'll be using the hearing procedure. Okay, is it on now? We will be using the same hearing procedure for both items, and I will read the order. The chairperson will call the public hearing item. The Land Use and Development Department will present the staff recommendation. Commissioners may ask questions of staff. There'll be a presentation by the applicant or representatives. Commissioners may ask questions of the applicant. The chairperson will open the public hearing. The chairperson will call for public comments from persons in support of the items, followed by persons in opposition to the item. The applicant will have the chance for rebuttal comments. The chairperson will close the public hearing. Commissioners may ask questions, have discussion, and take action. Speakers must speak from the podium and state their name and address for the record. The chairperson reserves the right to establish a time limit for all speakers to ensure that everyone can speak. We will have a 4-minute time limit this evening. All comments should be, and questions directed to the chair from the podium and not to the applicant, staff, or to the audience. When the hearing is closed, additional public comments are not permitted. We'll have roll call.
Jeanette Johnson.
Present.
Rosa Cavazos.
Here.
Chad Gerhardt.
Here.
Myron Linewetter. Dan Bryan.
Here.
Terry Robinson.
Here.
With 5 members present, there is a quorum.
Thank you. Have there been communications from the public to the staff?
Emails were sent to you all, the planning commissioners, Friday with communications that we received up until Friday morning. And then we went ahead and we printed all the emails and communication that we received from Friday afternoon until end of business day today. So that's part of your packet.
Thank you.
I would also, just as a side note, point out that just recall that this has been an ongoing process, and so any other communications that we've given you historically, including any prior to the moratorium, those after the moratorium, any of those can be taken into consideration as well as a part of this entire process.
Thank you. Is there any conflict of interest by members of the commission? I guess I forgot to ask if there were any ex parte communications by members of the commission.
I did receive a text message from a friend, did not share one side or the other, but just wanted more time to do her own personal research, and she was sick and couldn't attend the meeting tonight.
All right. Any others? All right, thank you. Then we will call
Street and Northwest 62nd Street in Grove Township. The parcel size, one is 2.73 acres, and the other one is 0.700 acres. Here is the general location of the sites by the marked by the blue star. The proposal would reduce the parcel located at 12020 Northwest 62nd Street and combine a portion of that with the adjacent parcel along Northwest 62nd Street, resulting in a 1.46 acre lot containing the existing residence, with the remainder land reserved for agricultural use. Since the combined property does not meet the plat exemption criteria for minimum acreage, a subdivision plat is required to establish a compliant and buildable legal lot. And here is the picture of both lots. Here's the preliminary plat and the final plat. Staff recommends approval of the preliminary and final plat of the Hatzel Ranch subdivision, subject to the following conditions. 1, execution of an additional dedication of 25 feet of right-of-way along Northwest 62nd Street for a total of 45 feet as required by the Shawnee County Public Works Department. And 2, no building permit shall be issued until the additional dedication of right-of-way has been executed. That concludes this item.
Do the commissioners have any questions of staff? If not, then would the applicant like to make a presentation?
I'm not sure what all you would like me to say, other than everything she just showed you. Is what we intend to do with the property is just keep it with natural grass. Yeah. That's it. So, yeah.
All right, do the commissioners have any questions of the applicant? All right, thank you very
Alrighty.
much.
Thank you.
Mhm. We'll open the public hearing. Are there any public comments from persons in support of the plat? Other than the applicant? Any persons in opposition to the approval of the plat? Then I guess we will close the public hearing. And commissioners, do you have any questions of anyone? Or are you ready to make a decision?
I make a motion that we approve the preliminary and final plat of the Hadsel Ranch, subject to the 2 conditions listed.
I second.
Thank you. Roll call?
Rosa Cavazos,
Yes.
Dan Bryan,
Yes.
Chad Gerhart,
Yes.
Jeanette Johnson,
Yes.
Terry Robinson,
Yes.
Myron Linewetter. With a unanimous vote in favor, the Planning Commission recommends approval of the subdivision, and it will be considered by the Board of County Commissioners on Thursday, February 12th.
No, no.
Oh,
Remember
oh,
this,
that's-
it's a plat.
Sorry.
Yep, sorry. We do things different with the plat, so there are some additional steps that they have to take before it goes to the Board of County Commissioners. So once they get that submitted to us, then it will go to the BCC.
All right, thank you. We'll move to item number 2, consideration of Shawnee County Solar Energy Conversion System regulations. Did you staff want to make some comments first?
Yes, I do have a presentation first. So just for the purpose of putting it all on the record and for everybody that's here today, I wanted to do a little timeline of how we got where we're at. In 2022, we had 2 solar farm conditional use permit applications come in front of the Planning Commission. The applicants were local energy companies, and the solar farms were about 10 to 15 acres each. It was felt that there was a lack of specific direction to follow for the consideration and approval of those conditional use permits. And there had been some concern by both the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners on what were appropriate conditions. There were some issues that we dealt with in regards to setbacks and how close residential houses were. There were some concerns with the location along a fairly major highway and glare. And so we spent some time considering how to implement the conditional use permit, and eventually those were approved in, I believe, May and June of 2022. As such, at that time, there was some discussion about moving forward with regulations and deciding what it is that could dictate and how we would move forward. And so the Planning Commission did discuss that, and then at that time actually considered a moratorium. We wanted to move that forward, and the Board of County Commissioners elected to not do that at the time, and said just go ahead and move forward with considering regulations, and let's see where that takes us. So that leads us to 2023, where we did a lot of research and review of a lot of things. I researched regulations not only in Kansas but in nearby areas, made contact with other counties and jurisdictions. I got information from a whole lot of people. We did legal research on county rights to not only moratoriums but bans. We sat through continuing legal education topics. We did a lot of research. We had speakers come to Planning Commission meetings. And that was not only in favor of but against, and giving us information on wind and solar. So then, leading through the rest of 2023, the Planning Commission decided at that point to do a community survey and decide to see what the community really felt about wind and solar. So we did that from September to October of 2023. We also continued doing research and had speakers continue to come to our meetings. In December 2023, it was decided that the Planning Commission was recommending that we consider a moratorium. So then, at that point, we moved forward in 2024 with writing staff reports and additional research. Now, I will say that this mentions just the one-year moratorium, but at the same time, we were looking at wind, and so a ban was also being considered at that time. So this was a mix of both wind and solar altogether. But I'm mostly notating the commentary towards solar, since that's what's up today. We did additional research, wrote staff reports, worked with our legal counsel on the hows and whys. We scheduled the public hearing for the Planning Commission at Great Overland Station in May of 2024. We did have a good amount of attendance at that, listened to public comment, and the Planning Commission made a vote to recommend the one-year moratorium. At that time, it moved forward to the Board of County Commissioners, where we had another public hearing, and there was an approval of the one-year moratorium at the Board of County Commissioners. Now, I'm gonna notate that that was only for solar, what we call solar farms, so solar energy conversion systems. Any sort of personal solar was not included in that. And so if a person wanted to put solar on their own home or on their own business, they were absolutely allowed to do so. This was just going to continue to look at what is a solar energy conversion system, how big do we want it to be, where would we want it to be placed, what kind of other regulations would we want to put onto it. So the moratorium applied to anything other than personal solar. So then we got to 2025, and we've absolutely put a lot of work, and Planning Commission, I appreciate all the time and effort you've put into where we're at today. We began in February with work session and discussion on the next steps for what we were gonna do, how we were gonna look at it, what that would look like for us over the next year. We discussed when the moratorium was gonna end and when we hoped that regulations would be in front of not only you, but the Board of County Commissioners. I would say that as we worked through things, we've pretty well met our deadline for ourselves. The moratorium did end midsummer, but we continue to move forward with the regulations, and we are where we're at here today. So then we had work sessions in March, April, and May discussing what it was that the regulations should look like. We spent a lot of time looking at other counties' regulations. We sent those out to all of the planning commissioners. They read through items. They looked at what it was that they liked, they didn't like, what they felt was important for Shawnee County. And then taking the history and the information that we had learned as we were preparing for that moratorium, we started drafting our first set of regulations. So in June, we considered the first draft. We reviewed it, we discussed it. There were a lot of comments from the planning commissioners on what they liked and what they didn't like, things that they wanted to add, things that they wanted to change. And so then in July and August of 2025, we spent time doing the amendments and the changes to those drafts. In October of 2025, we held a town hall meeting here in this room on the draft regulations and invited the public to come out and make public comment. In November of 2025, we had discussion about the town hall meeting and made a couple of minor changes and set the final draft, which is what is in front of you here today. Then in December 2025, we had a discussion regarding the public hearing, where it would be held, when it would be held, and whether or not we wanted it to go ahead and be held here in January. And that brings us to where we are at today. So all of the things that were considered when putting these regulations together, it's an insurmountable amount of work, research, and compilation of all of the things that have happened since, I would say 2022, because that gave us a great deal of experience in what it's like to consider a solar regulation or solar farm in front of the planning commissioners. Not all the planning commissioners are the same as were those who heard those conditional use permits, but we've shared and continued to share all of the same information all along. So we've taken all of the research, public hearings, public comments, presentations, and discussions that have been had to date. We gathered regulations from surrounding counties and states, whether they were approved, denied, or pending. We read, reviewed, and discussed those in detail. We considered why those regulations may or may not work for Shawnee County. We also considered the Shawnee County Comprehensive Plan. What did it tell us? Where does it think that development should or shouldn't occur? What are the things that it thinks that we should do in regards to development within Shawnee County? We also considered the land density of Shawnee County, which is really a main factor in what it is that we're hearing today. And you will see the maps. There's a map up on the wall here behind you that shows the land density map as it sits today in terms of the size of parcels that are located. And we will have, there were printed copies out, but we will also have it up on the screen here in just a minute. But that played a large part into the consideration of where is it that solar farms could go, or how big can they be? We also put a lot of consideration into the floodplain. Shawnee County has a large amount of floodplain, and we have to take that into consideration and protect the areas that are in the floodplain so that it helps protect other citizens of Shawnee County. And so that land density map actually also has an overlay of the floodplain as well on top of it. We also talked about the airports. We have at least two major, well, we have two airports here, and then we have several what I would consider private airports, so there is a lot of airspace. In the original moratorium and ban that we discussed, we did reach out to the airport authority and we talked to them about wind and solar. They were much more concerned about wind than they were solar, but we still have to take the airspace into consideration. And so that is notated in this set of regulations, whereby if a proposal is in front of us, they do have to converse with the airport if it's necessary, if it's within that specific area. We also took into consideration urban growth areas. The city of Topeka has a very specific urban growth area outlay that they have where they anticipate growth will happen over the next 40 years. And so one of the things that we put into these regulations is that if we have a solar farm going near a city or within an urban growth area or within a certain distance, then the applicant needs to reach out to that city and get input and comment from them, and then the planning department or the planning commission will as well. We also considered issues that we encountered with the two solar farm conditional use permits in 22. We have issues that came up that were very specifically argued, and so we had to take those into consideration. We sent out these regulations for input from the fire districts and got comments back from them. We also sent them out to all of the various Shawnee County departments, and in particular got comments back from Environmental Health and the Public Works Department. We sent them to the city of Topeka as well as other cities and townships within Shawnee County and did get comment back from them as well. We had, I, not necessarily the planning commission, but I had meetings and discussions, Harim and I actually both, because we participate in an association for the county planning and zoning officials. And those include zoning officials throughout the state of Kansas, many of whom have gone through this exact same process, who've encountered these exact same situations. So we've had discussions with them. We've had the pros and cons. We've had, how did your specific situation go? I was invited to a Kansas Climate and Energy Roundtable work group and do a presentation and discussion with them. So that was also a part of this. And then also I've had contact with the Kansas Department of Water Resources and the floodplain management staff there as a part of the floodplain management part of it, and had, asked them some questions about solar within the floodplain areas of Shawnee County. I don't know if there were other things that the planning commissioners can think of that we did as we prepared for this, but I think that is a pretty well-rounded situation. What we have here is the land density and floodway map, and I'm actually going to go up and approach the map so that I can point out a few things. What may be a little bit harder to see in the thatched areas are all of the floodplain that's located within Shawnee County. And so what you can see is we have a great deal of density. The red and orange are quite small parcels. Those are 3 acres or less, or 3 to 10 acres. And then once you get to the yellow, you're getting to 4 to 40, and 60 acres. What you can see is the dark green is 320 acres, and then the mint green after that is 200 to 320 acres, and then the 160 is a lighter green. So what you can see is we've got a lot of density throughout Shawnee County, and that was a primary reason when we were looking at the wind and solar, when we did the ban on wind and then a moratorium on solar. This is what we were looking at. Where is it in Shawnee County that a 1,500 acre or a 2,000 acre or a 20 acre solar farm can go? And while you can piece together bits and pieces of acres from different property owners to make bigger parcels, what you're going to encounter is the more likelihood of running into floodplain, the more likelihood of running into additional residential parcels, highways, roads, easements, all of the things that are gonna play a part in this big, dense, urbanized county versus when you're in a county that has widespread areas of farm ground. So I just wanted to point this out because this is one of the important maps that we looked at. So then I will have the regulations pulled up. These have been posted on our website off and on over the last year as we've updated them. The Planning Commission has considered these and helped line item and redline these over the last year. These are the ones that they've seen, and this was the draft that they were comfortable moving forward with as the proposed regulations. And so unless there are specific questions from the planning commissioners, I would recommend that at this time we move to the public hearing.
I think you covered that very well. Thank you, Joni. So we will open the public hearing and we'll call for public comments from persons in support of the regulations, followed by persons in opposition to them. Remember to go to the podium and sign in and state your name and your address.
I would also recommend that, while you don't need to line up by any means, but as one person is finishing, the next person go ahead and go sign up so that we're not waiting for people to sign in as we're sitting here. If you want to move the sign-in sheet to the table right behind you, you can.
We pre-signed in here.
Oh, perfect.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Paul Post. My address is 2101 Southwest 2nd Street here in Topeka. I'm a retired lawyer, and I'm currently Vice President of the Topeka and Shawnee County League of Women Voters. And the League has done some considerable amount of study on this exact topic. And in fact, we have talked to a couple of other county administrators about the work that they have done in their counties, specifically Johnson County and Douglas County. Now, my house is, like I say, at 2101 Southwest 2nd, and it was built in 1880 by Mr. George Pettibone Bates, who was a prominent businessman in Topeka. If you go down and look at Topeka Blueprint at 6th and Jackson, up at the top of that building, you'll see Bates, 1902. He built that building, and he built my house, which is located a couple blocks west of the Powin area. And it was built before there was a Powin area. I purchased the house in 1980, so it was 100 years old then, and I'm working on the second century of living in that home. About 12 years ago, I decided to put solar panels on my roof. I did that, and the next month, my utility bill was cut in half and has been that way ever since. So I have more than paid for those solar panels by the reduction of electric bills that I have, excuse me, I have incurred in the last 12 years. What you can do with that on a larger scale, on an industrial scale, is to allow those savings to be realized by persons who perhaps cannot afford to put solar on their roofs, tenants who do not have the opportunity to do that, but yet through industrial solar farms, they're able to realize the benefits of solar power. Now, I suggest to you, there was discussion by Ms. Ladani about the density of Shawnee County. We talked to the county administrator, as I said, for Douglas and for Johnson County, and I suggest to you that Johnson County is considerably more urban than Shawnee County. Yet in Johnson County, the allowance is for a 1,500-acre solar farm in that county. Douglas County decided on 1,000 acres, and I would suggest to you that Douglas County urban density is similar to that we find here in Shawnee County. So I would ask the commission to either not approve this ordinance at this time until further study can be done on the appropriate size of a solar farm. And I further suggest to you that a 240-acre limitation will essentially result in a ban on solar energy in Shawnee County, because developers are not going to be interested in putting the money in for that small of a development. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you for your consideration.
We're looking for people that are speaking in favor of these regulations right now, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Which is not exactly what
Okay.
I heard from
We-
that comment,
right.
correct?
We had asked for those who were speak in favor of the regulations first. So is there anyone that would speak in favor of the regulations? If not, then we'll continue with those that are against the regulations. All right,
So in favor of these regulations would mean that you support the regulations as they are written.
I just figured when nobody got up, we're moving forward.
No?
Yeah, sure.
Ma'am, just a quick one, does that mean 240 acres or less?
unless someone goes before the Board of County Commissioners and requests more acreage.
Thank you very much.
That is part of the regulation. All right, then, those against.
So who's against
Go ahead.
Hi there. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your service to our community. Really appreciate that. I think that we want to keep the door open. I think we want to make it easy to access solar opportunities, which provide economic vitality and growth, among so many other things. I'm asking you to vote no, so that we can continue to have the opportunity and the ability to evaluate on a case-by-case situation to determine what fits Shawnee County and what doesn't. Just keeping the door open to being able to do that allows us still to say no to it if it doesn't fit. Anyway, thank you.
Can
That's
you
it.
state your name, please?
Kelly Major Kurth.
So, good evening. My name is Vicki Arnett, and I live at 1110 Southwest Medford in Topeka. I am co-chair of the League of Women Voters of Topeka Shawnee County Climate Committee, and we would like to thank the Planning Commission and the Planning Department for their work on the issue of regulating solar in Shawnee County. The League adopted a position on climate and energy in April of 2024, which states in part, the League supports the development of energy sources which allow for the reduction of the use of fossil fuels. In June of 2024, the League supported the Shawnee County Board of Commissioners when they tasked the Planning Commission with developing large-scale solar installation regulations. The League has followed the process throughout. The proposed regulations before you tonight are simply not large-scale solar installations. Large-scale solar regulations require far more acreage than 240 acres, more flexible setback requirements, and battery storage as a component of the project. It's not apparent to the league or the public when or based on what information the charge from the Board of Commissioners was changed to develop regulations of community-scale solar rather than large-scale solar. The feedback we've received when we talked with the planning department was that there was no room for larger acreage projects in Shawnee County. And I must say that when we looked at a map, when we had this conversation, the map that we looked at was from 2016. So I'm kind of digressing because this is the first time the league has seen this particular map. So without hearing from solar experts in a public available work session, which includes maps, current maps, that allow the public to visualize the larger impact of large scale or any size solar, we believe that your work is not complete yet. The league recommends that you continue to work on these regulations and have public discussion in order to increase the size of acreage, decrease the size of setbacks, and look at battery storage regulations. Although the Planning Commission has clearly attempted to follow the Kansas Open Meetings Act, complex issues require a higher standard of transparency. We encourage the Commission to continue to work on the regulations and hold these public sessions with invited experts in order to continue to educate yourself and the public about solar. And I do thank you for your work. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Mark Galbraith. I live here in Topeka, and I appreciate all the work you've done on these draft solar regulations, but I won't repeat what others have said, but I too would encourage you to take another look at these regulations and to consider amending them to allow for much more acreage, true solar scale, solar energy development, to include battery storage, because battery storage increases, among other things, increases the capacity of a solar energy project without taking up a whole lot of additional acreage. And also to allow for more flexible setbacks. You know, I'm just, and I appreciate previous commenters noting that Douglas County and Johnson County also, I would assume, as they are as urban probably as Shawnee County, but found a way to include, to allow for large-scale solar development in their regulations, as well as battery storage. You know, I'm just afraid that if we don't make those kinds of amendments, as has been suggested already, that we won't attract a developer to come here and take a look at Shawnee County to see if in their minds it's possible to put together enough acres for a truly utility-scale solar project. And I think that would be a shame, because there's a lot to be said for solar development. If it's utility scale, it's going to mean bringing lots of money to our county that might result in some additional tax revenue for our local governments here. You know, new jobs, additional new source of income for landowners who agree to lease their acres to a developer. Just a lot to be said for it, including clean energy. So I'll just close by saying I hope you'll consider making amendments. I hope you'll consider additional public hearings, including that will include testimony from solar experts maybe from people from from Douglas and Johnson County, so we can all have a chance to listen and help decide if large-scale, utility-scale project or projects are appropriate for Shawnee County. Thank you again.
I already signed in. My name is Don Taylor. I am a professional engineer. I did submit written comments. They had some carefully thought through points in it. Some of the things in the regulations as currently written are vagaries in as to what it is. Oh, I missed. I live at 2021 Northeast 31st Street in Shawnee County. I don't live in the city. One of the problems is you use words that aren't defined. What is community scale? What is utility scale? Is there a number where one becomes from one size to another size? Those kinds of specifics are useful for anybody who thinks they want to have any sort of a development. That is one of the things in reading through the whole document, things that are not carefully defined so that someone could understand the distinction. Those kind of things need to be addressed. I did in my written comments specifically address the idea that if you're going to have something that is utility scale, you must apply through the Southwest Power Pool for a generation interconnection agreement, and that is an entirely different process. That study process is about 390 days long just to get one approved. And I put that in my written comments. But that is a critical piece. If you're going to have a utility scale, right? I don't know what community scale means, okay? The definitions are problematic. And then I did put in an example of I want to myself own, operate an agrivoltaics system, and the setbacks conflict with each other on some ways. So regulations are good. These regulations, I believe, could use some more work before they become a final approvable document. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Smith. I want to start by saying that I appreciate all of you taking the time to consider the several positives and negatives of various policies. I've watched all of your meetings so far, so I know how difficult it's been at times to keep your eyes from glazing over at all the particulars and specified policy choices. So again, thank you for taking on this challenge. I know it's been quite a long one. I would like to express a few concerns that may have been overlooked over the course of these discussions. 240 acres is far too small of an acreage allowance that may unintentionally discourage any meaningful investment in Shawnee County from utility-scale solar project developers. A few examples, Hancock County, Maine, 100 megawatt power plant sitting on 700 acres. Calhoun County, Michigan has 360 megawatt solar plant sitting on 1,700 acres. Crawford County, Ohio, 117 megawatt on 917 acres. Fillmore County, 45 megawatt and 470 acres. Geronimo Power is a company that's built dozens of solar power facilities. They almost always start at least at 40 or 50 megawatts. From there, they only go up 100 megawatts, 150 megawatts, and just about half of them have battery storage on them, just under half, and I'll touch on that later. Using quick hand math, it's usually about 7 acres per megawatt for solar generation. Which would mean that most projects feasibly start at about 280 acres, meaning we are cutting Shawnee County off at the ankles when it comes to solar power generation investment here. Let's talk about battery storage. There's been quite a lot of misinformation and borderline fear-mongering around battery storage when it comes to the likelihood of battery storage fires. I'd be lying if I said that it was impossible for fires to happen, but after reviewing some of the recent comments at previous Planning Commission meetings, some of those comments were referencing a battery storage fire at a battery storage plant in California that was not an on-site facility. It was some kind of makeshift battery storage plant in a warehouse warehouse-type facility that was built into an old gas plant. Modern battery storage typically comes with multiple redundancies, warning systems, and fire mitigation technologies built into the battery storage housings. SunGrow, SunSync, Namco, and even US-based company Siemens have already showcased various flagship products that highlight their advanced fire mitigation technologies that align with modern National Fire Protection Association recommendations for battery storage. Battery storage fires are objectively more common in electric vehicles, actually, based on the fact that the electric vehicles drive all over the country on various road conditions, driving over curbs, getting into accidents, etc. And with there being several hundred, if not thousands of EVs here in Shawnee County, has anyone even heard of a runaway fire on an EV here in Shawnee County, or even two? Stationary energy conversion systems simply do not have to account for the innumerable amount of variables that an EV battery pack does, and yet those fires themselves are rare. Let's talk about setbacks. Largely, the conversation has been based on potential for fire and how they may endanger neighboring properties. I've already discussed how incredibly rare fires are in modern systems. Audible vibrations of solar battery systems came up as a concern. Modern systems create unmitigated noise of about 50 decibels at 50 meters, which is about 150 feet. That's with no sound mitigation. It should be noted 50 decibels is about equal to a quiet conversation or the hum of a refrigerator. This would likely be dealt with in a CUP, whether it's trees, hills, etc. In my opinion, we should greatly reduce these setbacks so that each product can have more breathing room. We should allow battery storage that is in compliance with modern National Fire Protection Association guidelines, and we should outright remove the cap on solar farm acreage. Let developers and private landowners make deals based on their own personal businesses and preferences through the CUP process. Thanks.
My name is Margaret Kramar, and we live at 1966 East 100 Road, even though that's halfway between Topeka and Lawrence. I grew up in Topeka, I graduated from Topeka High, and I have lived in Topeka, so I'm still come a lot to Shawnee County. And one argument that I've heard against solar farms is that it takes valuable agricultural land out of production. I don't know if you're aware of the exciting field of agrivoltaics. There are places in the country where the solar farms, working with the local farmer and landowner, the value of their land and agricultural products has been enhanced because of the advantages of some of the solar panels. The shading allows like specialty crops to be grown, various vegetables that don't do so well out in the hot Kansas sun. There's talk about like grazing of sheep, of goats. Couldn't have cattle or horses, but you know, free-range chickens. There are a lot of agrivoltaics. You know, get on board with that. There are a lot of examples right now that are working, and so then the landowner would not only be subsidized for, you know, leasing their land to the energy company. They could make extra money with some of these other agrivoltaic options, and it's good for business. It's good for taxes. It's good for the farmer. Future is solar, so I urge you to get on board with it. Thank you.
Hello, I am Tad Kramar. I also live at 1966 E100 Road. Mailing address is actually Lecompton, but we live right on the edge, western edge of Douglas County. I used to work in Topeka for many years, and we're very active in Shawnee County. I am thrilled to see that you are considering regulations to let Shawnee County reap the benefits of clean, efficient, job-creating solar energy. Kansas depends heavily right now on importing coal from out of state. Let's move away from that dependence by allowing people to harness the sun's energy at all levels, individual, community, and utility scale. More solar energy will mean more jobs and lower energy costs for Shawnee County. It could also help some family farms survive by leasing some of their land to solar projects for much needed income. I do recommend 3 modifications. Some people I'll be very brief on that, they've already been mentioned, but raise the 240-acre limit. Due to economies of scale, large projects can produce solar energy at lower cost, helping to lower our energy costs. A reasonable limit would be 1,500 to 2,000 acres if you need one at all. Please allow battery storage. This makes solar more reliable because power can be provided from the batteries even when the sun isn't shining. And finally, lower the 500-foot residential structure setback, which is much higher than the norm and would eliminate many good solar sites from consideration. But again, thank you for moving forward with this project. This is I hope it comes to a final product which will benefit everyone in Shawnee County. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Leslie Prentice, and my address is 4020 Southeast 37th Street in Topeka. I've lived in Shawnee County for over 45 years, and I support solar energy. I read your draft regulations, and I fear that your restrictions will effectively ban its development for us. In support of utility solar, I'm going to state facts gathered from research. First, dangerous climate change and pollution from burning fossil fuels are serious threats to human life. This is the overwhelming consensus of scientific evidence that has only grown more vast and certain over the past 60 years. It can be read in scientific articles, federal laws, and government agency findings. Second, demand for electricity is growing for reasons including our need for adequate cooling and heating in the extremes of climate change, along with a boom in AI facilities. That demand is far beyond what existing electric companies can supply. Third, we Shawnee Countyans deserve affordable electricity, but the cost of electricity is rising, especially where new, expensive fossil fuel plants are the electric company's only proffered solution. Electricity from solar power is cheaper than gas-powered plants. All places, including our county, will eventually transition to more electricity from solar and wind power. Texas and California have built most of our country's utility-scale solar installations. As a result, they have cheaper, more reliable energy to meet their large needs. Fourth, development of solar power is a real economic opportunity for our state and for our county. Utility solar can clearly benefit our farmers and other landowners who can receive lease money for the use of their property. Kansas is fortunate to have more sunny days than 90% of the states. We also have much flat terrain. Shawnee County is the capital county of our wonderful state. Douglas, Johnson, and Sedgwick counties have already developed enabling regulations. KU researchers created the Kansas Energy Transition Atlas, and that was very recently. Maybe you got on that site because you can see what other counties, you can look at their regulations. And they found that the differing approaches were either enabling or blocking, and that most Kansas counties recognize utility solar development as an economic improvement opportunity. Fifth, our landowners have a constitutional right to develop their property as they choose under proven safe conditions. Finally, Canaria Media, that's a reputable clean energy journal, recently discussed concerns about battery storage fires. They noted that batteries are necessary at utility solar installations, and they're the cheapest, fastest way to get more energy onto grids. They can store up and send massive amounts of electricity for use at cost-effective times. New, much safer batteries have been rapidly produced and have proven effective. California has also strengthened their battery safety standards for solar installations by statewide law. Good federal standards on fire prevention and electric installation also exist. I really thank you very much. Your presentation and the comments here have shown that utility solar is a very complicated and rapidly changing subject. I'm going to ask you to please don't settle for blocked, and please formulate enabling regulations. And I close by saying I make this plea on behalf of my productive children and wonderful grandchildren, and those of my dear friends here, and those of everyone here, and everyone everywhere. Thank you.
I'm Cooper Melvin, 604 Northwest Half Moon Court. I think everybody touched pretty heavy on battery storage, which it is very critical to the grid. It's one thing we got to have for outages. It's just something we got to look forward. I think just upping the standards of safety on that is a simple fix. NFPA 855, UL 9540 are all simple things. A couple other things I'd like to touch on to see if pilot agreements were ever talked about, ensuring that all the tax revenue is going to go back to schools and emergency response. PLAs is another thing I think we should look at to ensure that all that tax money is also staying here and it's all local workforce and it's not out-of-town contractors continuing to come in and utilize that tax break and leave. And those are just a few things I had. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me okay? Hi everyone, Zach Pastora. I'm the proud chapter director for the Sierra Club. We're an environmental organization. We have about 4,000 members across the state, many more, tens of thousands of supporters that take action with us. Right here in Shawnee County, we have 270 dues-paying members and 513 supporters. We didn't invite them all here tonight because we need a little more space, but I'm proud to represent them. We're care about the environment. We care about the future. I was thinking about some of the comments earlier. I'm also being a director, a proud new dad. I got a 1-month-old at home, and so I'm thinking about the future in my own hands and the need for society at large to transition to a clean energy future without as much pollution into our air, into the atmosphere, and doesn't use as much water, which we're going to need a lot more reserves of water in the future. You know, I was thinking about it'd be on this sunny morning, sunny day, it'd be a great day to testify on some solar regulations in Shawnee County. And to that end, I want to say thank you for your hard work. I'll say from our standpoint, it shows. Looking through all the regulation in a number of time, you've put in soil erosion plan, a water and soil testing, environmental assessment, traffic, glare prevention study, pilot and the compensation as far as the taxes go, fire safety plan, and decommissioning financial assurance, the list goes on. So you've done a great job in thinking about how your regulations can hold true to your values in protecting Shawnee County residents. You know, with all that said, I had to just object just on a couple of typos, really, and that's the acreage limit. It says 240. I thought sure it'd be 640 acre limit or 1,040. So that's why I've objected. You know, as we work to support regulations in Douglas County, and we did support them, it ended up at a 1,000 acre limit. And that's something we felt comfortable because we wanted to raise the standards. We wanted to allow the green projects and solar to come in, but making sure they were green to the environment and good for the people as well. This is just too small, especially think about the 2-mile setback from another project. If you look at the map, if someone, these are voluntary agreements, wanted to have it on their own land and took up 240 acres, then the neighbor who also wanted to have a solar farm within that 2-mile setback couldn't have their own project. So you got to do a couple of different things. You either got to decrease the buffer to let the neighbors get involved, or you increase the acreage. So I would say 640 might not be a bad compromise here on the acreage, but you think about it, probably should go up a little bit more. These are voluntary agreements on people's own land, private property rights, and so let's allow people to maximize the opportunity for solar. Keeps us warm, helps plants grow. Why not take advantage of it for the economic benefit of the private landowner, but also for Shawnee County? You know, solar is a stepping stone to get other businesses to come in too. They want to have clean energy and be green as well. So make sure you're not shutting the door on solar. Let's let solar shine in Shawnee County. why don't we err on the size a little bit higher acreage, and then we can take a look at the conditional use permit and see the actual support for the project on a case-by-case basis. So thank you for all your good work. Keep it up, hang in there. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Emily Wolf. I'm a lifelong Kansan and lead the Kansas Local Power Network, where we are a group of organizations advocating for smart, reliable, affordable energy. Several of the wonderful speakers today mentioned a few things I was going to say, but I wanted to add one thing, which I'm sure this is a fact you've heard at some point, but unfortunately, Kansas is one of the sunniest states in the U.S. and has notoriously flat landscape, but unfortunately, we rank 41st out of all the states and our utilities being powered by solar. Fortunately, though, there is a solar boom. There's in the news, as you can probably Google renewable energy solar in Kansas, several projects will pop up that are in the way. And I simply, just Zach mentioned, we don't want Shawnee County to lose out on those opportunities. And to speak to the jobs aspect, a great resource I love is Clean Energy Jobs Midwest. And they estimate nearly 27,000 jobs in Kansas are related to clean energy, energy efficiency, electric vehicles, or other related fields. And they estimate about 1,500 of those jobs alone are in Shawnee County. And as the grid requires more demand, power, things people said, data centers, we need these employees to be ready. And finally, I'm a lifelong resident of KCK, and we are currently considering, they are, not me personally, but the Commission and Utility Battery Energy Storage Project. And we actually have an open house tomorrow. The developer's hosting at 5:30 p.m. I can share more info. I know it's a little dry for you. But our network is engaged on that process, and as a result, we've really challenged the developer to be more creative with their community benefits dollars, how they're used to have a real impact. They've also offered to increase the amount if needed. And originally, a developer did not plan to use a union workforce, which, as someone mentioned, probably result in outside contractors, but we're in the final stages of them committing to use IBW Local 124. And so I think it's, benefit of welcoming the developer, and you can work, not a good developer, we don't want those, but there are good ones out there like we've experienced. Who's been working really well alongside the community in our group. But if you want more info about that, please let me know. Thank you.
Whoops, we have one more here.
My name is Richard Johnson. I live at 3536 Northwest Huxman Road. I'm opposed to solar. Rodney Dangerfield said he was 9 years old before he found out that Alpo wasn't a child's meal. 12 counties in Kansas see the green energy as dog food. Jackson County and Douglas County still have litigations going on in regards to the solar that's going on in their areas. 100 solar companies have gone bankrupt. Who cleans up after that? Who gets rid of those solar areas once these places go bankrupt and they're no longer being effective? I still have the weed patch over there by my house where we have a solar array. I reported it in the last meeting that we had, and I sent the email like you suggested, and the grass is still there. Now, it's not going to catch a whole lot of places on fire at this point because the cornfields have all been cut down, but the big concern is the particulate matter and everything else that comes from those. Even if it's, in larger areas where people have much larger acreage with a lot of field, once that gets started, it goes. And the two main reasons fires start is because of poor maintenance, which I can show you over there at my place. I even sent you a picture. And then the other side of that is heat and humidity. And Kansas has a lot of heat and humidity. Panels, they talk about so many acres to provide a kilowatt or a megawatt of electricity. That's in premium time. Once the temperature gets over 77 degrees, the amount of energy it produces drops considerably. We have a third of the year in and basically clouds. There's not a good time for that type of thing. Solar's dying. I mean, we've lost 100 different companies in regards to this, but it's a progression that has taken place. We started out in western Kansas where there's little opposition. We put in solar farms out there where there's no transmission lines, so then we get to add transmission lines, $4 million a mile. Then we get in farther and we go, well, now we need to have gas-powered generators. They're putting one in, they've got it approved. They've got one approved now for nuclear. So that's telling you that the solar is not working at this point. The other side of that is it's more money, more money, more money, and the sites just keep adding to it. And if we cut down on the coal plants that we have, and then we add a chip plant in Wichita, we add a data center somewhere up along the Kansas border, we're going to put in a Chiefs stadium. That's a lot of drain. We have 8 processing ethanol plants, and they have dehydrators, and that is run by gas and electricity. So we're sucking a lot of energy in that place. And I got to thinking, blackouts. How many people have had a blackout? I mean, I've had electricity off at my house, but it hadn't do anything with lack of energy. It's the lines are down. We put 30% of our electricity that we produce here to other places. The transmission lines that they want to pass out is going to go to Missouri, it's going to go to Oklahoma. That's not helping us any. Our population is losing. Kansas has lost over 6,000 people in the last 8 or 9 years. Topeka alone loses 0.72% a year. So we have plenty of electricity in regards to that. The solar just isn't working. And we're seeing that now. We have other places. Tennessee's got a nuclear plant that's getting ready to go on. 3 Mile Island, they activated another one. The big solar project that they had out there that was a showcase in California is shut down. And they've put $1 billion into their nuclear generator out there. So I'm totally opposed to adding any more to this situation because it's just not working. The other things are coming in, and obviously government, federal government, has taken away the subsidies. Thank you for your time.
My name is Catherine Hamilton. I live here in Topeka at 2255 Southwest Westport Square. I'm a Sierra Club member. I'm retired. I worked with United Way and a number of agencies like Kansas Children's Service League as a social worker. I was very impressed by how hard your staff has worked to research this issue. It is complex, and clearly they've made safety a #1 priority, which it has to be. As the gentleman spoke before, there are some hazards. What if property isn't kept up and becomes a fire hazard? What if, they go bankrupt and there's an expense involved with taking it down? I understand your work is sometimes tedious, always challenging, and a great service to all of us. He also brought up the point that we are losing our population in Topeka, in the city at least, and that the demand for energy is growing nationwide. Our governor has the wisdom to talk about all the options. She wants to encourage nuclear as well as all the other possible sources of energy, because any community that has a future has got to invest in sustainable energy as well as traditional energy. I hope that our Planning Commission considers safety and the future, considers financial aspects and commercial needs, as well as individuals who are frightened by change. I hope all of you will give serious thought to the 3 points we're trying to make, that on a commercial scale, for a utility company to even consider Shawnee County as an investment, they have to have at least 1,000 acres. They have to have setbacks that are more reasonable, and they have to have the option of battery power. I realize you've given this already a lot of time, a lot of thought, a lot of effort. But I hope you'll put it on pause because this is such an important issue. And obviously to many, many residents, many more than are here tonight. And that you can find a safe way for batteries to operate, not just ban them. And what might be more reasonable space for a solar array. Thank you for your hard work, and I'm sorry this may extend it even further. Good luck to you.
Hi, I'm Diane Denham, and rural northern Osage County, just very close to Shawnee County line. I have
Would you get closer to the mic?
Okay, I have worked in Shawnee County for years and years and years and years, more than I want to count. Okay, so just a reminder that 1,202 petitions with a combined total of over 31,072 acres owned were submitted against having industrial solar in the county. I think overall, your proposed regulations are pretty good. We just have a couple of concerns, and those are with the setback and the battery storage. Okay, the 240 acres, I think that's fine. Now, here's something from GoSolarFloridastate.org, July of 2024. What is a safe distance to live from a solar farm? In general, solar farms are required to be built at least 1.86 miles from residential areas. It is recommended to live at least 1,640 feet from large-scale farms and 656 feet from small scale. Now, the county regulations show 500 feet from residents. For example, Jackson County has 1,320 feet. It's still close, but it's better. 50 feet from the property line, Jackson County has 300 feet, okay? So think about this. What if your house and property and a huge solar fire was coming your way? Would you be concerned that it was so close? I know I would. What if you're, here's another one. From Business Insurance Magazine, fire is a major hidden danger for solar farms. Firetrace International said fire risks cannot be totally engineered out. As a result of fire, wind, and hail potential exposures, insurance companies will likely start increasing rates or just dropping insurance for properties bordering or near solar fields. What would happen if the county allows a solar farm and the insurance company cancels the non-participating land and homeowners insurance? Who is responsible for that, and what are they going to do? Okay, just for an example, Eagle Point Solar Farm in Oregon, October 24, had 2 fires within 2 months. Both were caused by overheated electronic panels that failed and then subsequently dropped molten electronics into the grass. So the draft regulations dated June 25 stated battery storage systems are prohibited. We see that you added "at this time" on the later version and would like to request that be taken back out, because battery storage systems can catch fire and can't be put out once they go up in flames. The area must be evacuated until it burns out. As the battery burns, it releases many toxic chemicals that end up in the environment and in our groundwater. Once these toxic chemicals get into the groundwater and our aquifer, they destroy our wells and drinking water. In January of 2025, the Moss Landing, California Best Fire, over 1,000 residents were evacuated. The toxic smoke plume traveled 27 miles, and there was a 3-mile runoff into streams and waterways, resulting in setback recommendations for best siting, and of course, that's the storage. Minimum of 30 miles from people, schools, hospitals, farms, wetlands, based on the 27-mile plume and 3-mile runoff. So thank you for listening. I did email a list of the the solar fires from 24 and 25. Did you all receive those? If not, I have copies. Everyone has that. There were like 34 reported in 24 and 25. So if you had any questions, I'm glad to answer those, okay? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Clinton Lambot. I live at 7321 Southwest Davis Road. That's in that southwest corner of the county. We are a landowner. We have cattle operation. And I can appreciate a lot of the comments that have been made by quite a few of the folks. They're against what you have proposed because they want more acres in that proposal. I've heard several of them make great praises of your time spent researching this. And I can appreciate that too. And my assumption is, because I'm assuming, because I haven't been to all these meetings, that you folks have looked at the 240 acres or less as being the ideal amount of acres for Shawnee County. They've also stated that you've spent many, many hours researching this. So my assumption is that you made a wise decision at limiting it to 240 acres. Some of the questions that I have, there again, I have not been to all these meetings. I haven't done a bunch of research on this. But questions that I have is, out of the folks that have spoke here tonight, I don't need any answers, but if you want to address me after the meeting, that would be fine. How many of these folks that spoke tonight have more than 20 acres? The majority of them, sounds to me like, lives within the city limits of Topeka. I understand the concerns of the electricity cost. Trust me, I know. But instead of jumping to this project, maybe they should get on the bandwagon and jump on the current electricity companies. I appreciate a comment or two made by, this electricity may not even stay here. So you're making a choice to make it cheaper, supposedly, for somebody else on across several states. I would also like to ask them folks how many times they've seen their electricity bill go down. Now, the one gentleman said his went basically in half. That's because he purchased his own solar system. And hey, I'm not against that at all. Purchase your own, put it on your own property. A few other things that I had here. What are we going to do with the old batteries? Nobody's said a thing about that. What are we going to do when these power plants or these solar plants have worn out? Who's responsible for the cleanup? Is there going to be eminent domain possible for these companies? The other thing, at 15, well, one gentleman said, let's try to get it at 640 acres. I don't know if anybody in this room can tell me who owns 600 plus acres, let alone 1,500 acres. I highly doubt that there's anybody in this room besides myself that fit within that border. Thank you very much for your time.
Good evening. My name is Robert Riley. I live at 2424 Southwest 26th Drive in Topeka. I grew up out in northern Shawnee County on over 20 acres. And I think this is a project that is worth considering. I recognize, like many members or citizens here have, you guys have been really diligent and careful on this, and I appreciate the considerations to soil erosion, floodplain. A lot of things here are important. I know all of us know big, hard, complicated projects can't be perfect no matter how hard we try. So I think there's always room to evaluate and refine and make better. I mean, that's what makes a lot of us great and hardworking, is when something doesn't work or a part of it, we refine it and we make it better. And I think we can do that to these plans. I appreciate that you've addressed the financial assurance and making sure that there is a way to clean this up when it needs to remove. You know, they've brought up a good point that we absolutely need to address it, and you guys have. I've read that in the regulations, and I appreciate that. I see the map. I think the map is a great visualization on parcel size. By my look and count, there's 10 or 15 sites at least that are over 460 acres over there. There's several that are over 800 and over 1,000. I haven't heard the logical reason to exclude them from being able to do the project if they have the setbacks. Just because there's not that many of them, I don't see the logic to say that's where we need to stop. Isn't that what the conditional use permit process is about, or the fact that people don't even have that size of land? I mean, it'll self-filter. If there's so few of those, so I'm hearing there's not that many, so we won't allow it. Can we reflect on that a minute? I mean, the logic in that, like, I think that's a fallacy to say that that's where we should stop, because there's not a lot. I just think that there's only a few ideal cases to go over that, and I just don't see the reason to stop there. I think that's one big key sticking point. I mean, people are coming up in opposition, but I think on the most part they like what you've put together. I just think we need to reflect on that part, and I think this is such a great opportunity for people that don't own their own property. Not everybody has the opportunity, like Mr. Post, to own their home and put solar panels on it and reduce not only their energy costs, but their environmental footprint. I think we need a diversification of energy. This is one tool in the tool belt. I mean, one kind can fail or have a problem, and I think it's foolish not to be a leader in this space. All too often, Shawnee County and Topeka seems to forget that it's the capital city of this state and that we're here to, be leaders. I encourage you to lead in this space and, consider increasing the size. And I think with safety and modern regulations and battery technology, we can have safe battery on-site storage. And I appreciate you guys at least still considering that element, because I think it's crucial to make it so we can store it and use it later, and not just when it's sunny outside. So thank you.
Well, we thank you all for being here and speaking to us this evening. Is there?
We should probably make a call to make sure that there's nobody out in the audience in the lobby that needs to come in.
Okay. Do I need to?
You want somebody to
Yeah.
walk out?
Yeah, that'd be quicker.
Can I go to the bathroom?
You're a grown man, no one's stopping you. I'll tell you if you miss something.
We'll take just a couple minutes here to make sure that there's no one out there.
Is there a planning department?
No, there's no planning department. There's a land use and development department.
Yeah. Editorial copy.
Yeah.
As of what, 2 weeks ago?
As of 2 weeks ago. Well, I mean, almost exactly 2 weeks ago. It just makes it all the more exciting.
Constant change.
Yeah. You never know all the moving parts.
They're all good out there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Chad.
All right. Thank
Okay,
you,
we're
thank
good.
you
Yep.
all, and we will now close the hearing. And commissioners, do you have any questions of anyone or want to take any action?
Question of Joni. What are you looking for tonight? What are our options? Do we have to take an action? Would an action be to, and obviously we could vote to approve these as they sit or deny these as they sit. Other action would be to,
Revisit?
Revisit, yep. So this was a public hearing, and so you do move forward with some sort of motion tonight.
yeah.
That motion can be to approve as recommended. It can be to deny as recommended. If you would move to deny it as recommended, I would ask that you make comments on if it's a flat-out denial, we're just not gonna accept it, or if you have specific reasons that you wanna revisit. The other option would be to defer action and direct my office to look into other items or make other considerations, and you can either go ahead and set a new date in the future that we would reconsider these, or you could leave it open-ended and we would just do a new publication and mail out, email, et cetera, to those who have requested. Or you can make amendments right here and now and still vote to move forward. You really have, your options are endless.
Sky's the limit.
Yeah, yeah. So we could have another work session.
Yeah, if you would want to, what I would recommend at that point is that you make a motion to defer action, since we did have a public hearing, so make a motion to defer action and allow the planning commission additional time for work sessions.
Shall we wait till Terry gets back?
Yeah. Yeah.
I would, I'm just talking to you guys now, but I'd like to take some time, kind of reflect on everything we heard tonight from both sides and roll it around a little bit. That was a lot of information back and forth.
If you wouldn't mind me making a couple of comments in response to a few things that were brought up through the public comment.
No, please.
One of the things that came up frequently was the battery storage, and if you recall, Planning Commission, we did add at this time, because battery storage, while it may be beneficial to a solar energy conversion system, battery storage can be done in association with solar or wind or other projects, but they can also be done as standalone projects as well. And if you recall, we discussed the fact that we wanted to talk about battery more as a standalone issue versus rolling it into the solar issue, so that we're able to make decisions about solar, and then you can look at battery on a separate topic. I don't want it to appear as though we're trying to put a ban out there on battery, because that's not what this is attempting to do. This is attempting to say we're not gonna look at it at this time because we really need more information, and we were trying to concentrate on one topic versus two. There was also a comment that we were tasked with writing regulations for utility scale farms, and that's incorrect. We weren't tasked with writing any specific type of regulations other than considering solar regulations and solar farms as a whole. We were tasked with looking at it and making a decision on whether solar was right for Shawnee County or not, and then if so, what that would look like. There was no push by the BCC in regards to any size. And so that's what you all have been tasked with and what you've been doing. The moratorium that was signed by the BCC is quite clear on that. There's no size indicated on that. The last thing that I would point out was there was a comment that there are definitions missing within those regulations. Those definitions aren't missing. They actually are located in former regulations that were approved, which would be the moratorium for today. We define, well, the moratorium for solar prior to today. We defined within there what utility scale meant for Shawnee County and what community scale meant, what each of those meant. And those regulations were adopted and made a part of our zoning regulations. And so we didn't redefine those items within here, because we will keep them as a part of the definitions that we've already looked at and considered. And to answer the question about was there a number associated with those? And that the answer is no. We weren't looking specifically at a number size to define what is utility scale or community scale. It's a use. You know, how is it going to be used? Is it being used to sell back to the grid? Is it being used to the benefit of a community area? Is it being used to benefit a personal house or a personal business? So those definitions are there. They're just not laid out in these regulations because we'd already discussed and approved those previously.
Thank you.
So Terry, before you came back in, what was discussed is what are your options for moving forward tonight? And really the options are endless. You can move to approve, you can move to deny, you can move to defer action and ask for additional work sessions. You can ask to, or make a motion to amend something tonight. The options are endless based on what you wish to do.
Is it possible to ask some of the folks that spoke questions?
I think just like with any public hearing, if you have specific questions that you would like to ask, that's appropriate.
Sure, I would like if Donald Taylor, since he's a PE, to come up. First of all, thank you all for being here, and it's quite informative, and I appreciate the fact that you've. I know it can be an emotional issue, but you've contained that, right? And we've had meetings here where emotions have not been contained very well. I also want to thank you for the fact that, this is what democracy is, and I appreciate that very much. I am not adverse to solar, but as you listen to or look at what we've written, you need to understand that our fiduciary responsibility is really to the county and everyone in the county. We tried to take into account not just some of the things that have been discussed here, but what is the geography and the topology of our county. And with that, I'm going to ask you, sir, since you are an engineer.
I am.
Yeah.
Electrical engineer. I worked for almost 40 years for the company formerly known as Kansas Power and Light. I officially retired with the merger that created Evergy.
Right. And I appreciate all the things that you wrote. I wasn't able to read all of it in a short period of time, but I glanced through it. And I want to ask you a couple of questions. One is as you think about solar and the future of solar, how do you see the technology in solar advancing with this in mind? Okay, we put in solar panels of this generation that's available now. What's going to be available in 20 years, and how different do you think that's going to look?
The efficiencies are increasing. So the energy production and efficiencies are getting higher and higher with some new technologies. Some of them are so new that all of the windows in your house could be solar panels. They're transparent. So that kind of technology. New solar panels have built onto the back sides of them microinverters. They don't put out DC, they put out AC power. And you daisy chain them together, collect it all together like that. Mm-hmm. Those actually exist now, but they're getting better and better.
So would you say that the possibility in the future of the 240, 250 acres might be big enough in the future based on the increased technologies?
For what?
For someone to have a commercial grade
technology today, I can get about 4 or 5 megawatts per acre. And so if you do some arithmetic, you can get an awful lot of power out of 240 acres. Is that enough for a utility scale? Who's building it and who's buying it is part of the question on that.
Okay. The second question I have, and Mr. Smith, talked about battery storage and in the conversations that he's heard as he's listened in. A lot of those voices were mine. I'm very concerned about the safety of battery storage. And certainly there will be a continued technology change in battery and the ability for storage. What do you see in regards to battery storage in the future?
Well, there's old battery storage and there's new battery storage. One of the things I put in my written comments is in every high voltage transmission substation in Shawnee County today, there's already battery storage. You just can't see it. Inside of a lot of the substations, there's a control building. Inside the control building, there's battery storage. What is it? Racks, huge racks of lead acid batteries, because they can be kept, maintained very well. They don't tend to catch fire. We've never had one in the almost 40 years I worked for the utility. We never had a battery fire in one of our substations. And those are there, so as I wrote, in the case of a complete blackout, heaven forbid, the battery system runs all of the protective control systems. That's how those get to operate safely and effectively. New, like lithium ion or sodium ion or some battery technology I haven't even heard of yet, they exist. Do they have some problems? Yeah, you see the videos of lithium ion battery blocks, it's catching fire in the guy's pocket. Yes, some of those are problematic. Old technology batteries, they don't seem to do that. Do I know what's going to happen in the future? Nope, I have no idea.
The last
commissioning would be, it all goes away. By the time decommissioning happens, you won't know it had ever been there. The panels are gone, the supports are gone, all of it is taken out. The buildings are gone, it's back to what it was before.
Where does all of that stuff go?
A lot of it goes into recycling. All of the metal support structures, I reprocess all of that. Can you reprocess solar panels? That's kind of iffy, depending on who you talk to. And how do you reprocess them? I guess you dismantle them all. If the frame's off of them, I don't know how they handle the recycling, that's my quotes, the solar panel, the solar cells themselves. I'm not sure I know how that works.
Okay. The other concern that I had and have voiced as we've been working through this process is vegetation. I'm going to look to the Sierra Club again. One of the things that I keep thinking about is, as I'm out in Shawnee County driving along, and you're right, there are areas that are flat, but they're not flat. I took up bicycling for a while, and I thought it'd be great because Kansas is flat, and I found out real quick that it wasn't. And I haven't bought an electric bike, but if I'm going to bike again, that's what I'm going to do. And it'll have a battery in it. Is the removal of vegetation and the maintenance of vegetation, like trees? I like trees, and I hate to see large acreages of trees taken out to provide battery storage. So when we wrote these, when we were looking at all this and we were looking at the size, we were trying to fit it for Shawnee County. Its geography, its topography, and I understand completely your idea, and please, I'm not against solar whatsoever. In fact, I would tell you, if I didn't have a wife that was picky about what the roof of her house looked like, I have a beautiful south roof that would support solar panels, and it would be on there. But she's very picky about the roof line, so no, we don't have it. But with that being said, you don't think there's any chance that anybody at our certain size and setbacks would attempt to put in any kind of a commercial project?
I have no idea of who is eyeballing possible places to do utility scale. Utility scale and community scale have different models. Community scale is a particular problem. If we build it to sell to our neighborhood, now you have a different legal problem, because selling electricity at retail comes under completely different jurisdictions. When you sell electricity at retail, you have a whole different issue that comes up. Out on Arrowhead Road is the KCC, and they kind of get fussy about selling electricity at retail. Utility scale projects, I'm selling at wholesale to some like utility. Free State is here in Shawnee County. Evergy, of course, is here in Shawnee County. To those kinds of things.
Yeah. Mr. Taylor, thank you so much for being grilled for a little bit. Appreciate it. And I want to just say, I hear you. I understand where you're coming from, and I would certainly take it into consideration. We have worked very hard, and we have tried to scale this for Shawnee County, not with the idea of hampering solar, but actually the way which we might be able to use it in our county. Thank you so much.
All right.
Well, with the, I'll just say with the intention of giving us time to reflect on everything we've heard tonight, I would move to defer action until we can reflect on this, then take it up in another work session next month.
Is there a second to that?
I would second that.
Thank you, Rosa. We'll call the roll.
Do you want discussion on that? Or?
Any discussion?
You know, I don't know if it's necessarily discussion on that specific motion, but, you know, I guess it could be related. I'd make comment that, and I was gonna make comment, but.
Oh, sorry.
He jumped into the motion, you're
I
fine.
thought you were giving me to make a motion on
You
it.
can still.
I'll take it in the
make
discussion
comments, yep.
portion here. You know, I'm a planning commissioner that is, got a lot of faith in our conditional use process, you know, that is already in place for us. And, you know, as we work through these, you know, I don't know if 5 acres is right, or 50 acres is right, or 5,000 acres is right. And, you know, as other projects come before us, you know, somebody wants to build a hog farm, or someone, you know, wants to put in a building, you know, you have that in front of you. You know, you have their plan in front of you, and you have something specific to review. You know who it's potentially going to affect or not affect. So I get, you know, I guess my comment to it is, we have done a lot of work and research and have sat through these, and I think the intent of that was so planning commissioners, you know, that aren't us in the future have a framework of something to look at, so they don't have to spend potentially the amount of time that we've spent. Same with the Board of County Commissioners. You know, there's been research done, you know, to help guide them. You know, I myself am not in favor of just a hardline set of regulations. You know, I'm more in favor of what you know, we have some other things that we operate like this in the county, of a set of guidelines. You know, we set up guidelines, there's something to look at. Hey, you know, you should take a look at a pilot, you should take a look at a bond, you should take a look at reclamation, soil runoff, you know. Set those aside so we have a framework to look at. But I guess my main comment is, I like our conditional use process, you know, conditional use permit process, and I like to review projects using that. That was my discussion.
I appreciate that. I think one of the reasons why I would like to look a little bit deeper is the maps that the group used before was the 2016 map, and the map that we have is, Joni, what year? 2026, 25?
2026. I mean, based on our understanding, it's from last week.
Okay, so I think when we were putting all of this together, we were looking at that map, our current map, most current map, and making those decisions. And over the last 9 years, there has been a lot of change and a lot of growth, and And so that would be the only reason, one of the main reasons why I would want to just look at that a little bit closer to see what was looked at before and where we are now. Not that I don't, mistrust anyone, but for some reason, at some point, there was this greater acreage that was part of the plan, and I know that probably has changed, I get that, but I'm just curious of the overlay of that, and so I would like to just see that so that I could say I did my due diligence to make sure that it was, that, I think that we're doing the right thing, but I want to make sure that I can say, yeah, I really feel like we looked at everything, and whether that's bringing a couple of people back to look at that with us so that, you can understand why we made that 240, was that right? Yeah. 240, thank you. I was like, it wasn't 420, I just want to get my numbers right. Why we made that 240 decision, because I think that that was a really big thing that we tasked on when we looked at that map. So I am curious just to see what that looked like. And I know the gentleman in the back, I can't remember your name. I know I wrote it down, but you had mentioned, was it Robert? You had mentioned, just because we had this map that we shouldn't, take away from the possibilities of the larger acreage that we have. And so I just really like to see that visually for me a little bit. But I do, just as you said, I do believe that we are doing our due diligence and have a lot of things in place to make sure that we are moving forward with, great decisions. I think we all are in favor of solar energy but I do want to make sure that we are, for me, I just would rather look at that. So, long story short.
Thank you.
I'd like to chime in. I think the only, and I'm not willing to make a motion at this time as far as size, but after listening to these folks who I think have spent some time, maybe look at the size again. My question is if we change this, does it go back to public comment, or do we just make the decision at the next work meeting?
Right here today, you've heard public comment and that's been closed. You want to have another meeting next month. I wouldn't call it a work session. I would probably just call it another action item. And so if you wanted to make a motion to approve something next month, you could without waiting then another month to have further. You don't have to accept additional public comment, or you can accept public comment on, like we've done in some other historical specific zoning cases where we only allow public comment on the new changes. So you don't hear everything over again, you just hear it specific to the things that you've changed.
Yeah, I would just like to say that I'd be more interested in next time as an action item, spend more time talking about the size. I mean, the idea of having public comment is to take consideration in what they're saying, correct?
Absolutely.
And so I would find that would be appropriate at this time.
Okay. So I would challenge each of you then, you haven't voted yet, but I would challenge you then to come prepared to discuss a specific size. I'm not going to bring a recommendation because we've got that out there. So if you have specific changes you would want to make, then next month when you're discussing that, you would make those motions next month. So think about that as you're considering all of the public comment. And if Rosa wants to see maps, we can. The map that we had before was 2016 or 2019, something of that. The numbers you were given were updated as of the time that we were considering it. We just didn't have the map printed out. So in terms of the size of the various parcels and acreage that we had, that was all accurate as of, 23, 24, whenever we were first considering that. And then this was from today. And I don't want you to forget that we also looked at like the native stone pathways and airport facilities. And so think back to the comprehensive plan, and if you need to spend some time looking at the comprehensive plan over the next month as well, because there are maps in there. That comprehensive plan is on our website, and so you can go look at the various maps on there and see how those are aligned as well.
So Joni, I guess I have a question. Are we postponing or deferring to next meeting, or are we indefinitely postponing?
Are you postponing to next meeting? Dan, your motion was to
Have a work session.
have a
next-
work session next month. So you move to defer action and have a work session next month.
If you don't like the word work session, I think we'll be able to make amendments and vote it next month.
Okay,
Okay,
so you
so-
would
Can
defer
I,
action to the February planning
Correct.
commission meeting?
Okay.
Okay, so can you go ahead and make an amended motion, and then we can have a second?
Okay, so I move to amend my original motion to defer action until the February meeting.
Okay, I don't think there was a second to the first one.
Rosa
I
seconded.
Oh,
did.
you did second.
Yeah, so I would second that.
Okay, because I don't want to have to do the amendment and then vote on it twice. So, all right. Shall we call the roll unless there's further discussion? Okay.
Jeanette Johnson,
Yes?
Terry Robinson,
Yes.
Chad Gerhardt,
Yes.
Rosa Cavazos,
Yes.
Dan Bryan,
Yes.
Myron Meinreder. With a unanimous vote in favor, the Planning Commission will defer action until February meeting.
And so for everybody who is here tonight, the February meeting is the second Monday of the month, so February 9.
What time?
At 6 p.m. Yep, so back here, February 9 at 6 p.m. And we do have other items that will be heard that night, so it could be a long meeting. Be prepared. It would be with the actual item. Yeah.
And I don't know, we need to discuss it now, but I would prefer any change that we make at next meeting, that would be the only thing, if we do have public comment at all, that would,
Just
that,
the change.
yeah, I don't know if we need to put that on the books now, but.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Sorry,
That
there's
would be
just,
great.
there's a motion to defer indefinitely and a motion to defer to a definite time, so we just need to make sure everybody was aware
Yeah.
that we were
That
setting a
we were
time.
setting it for a definite time.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that works out perfect.
That's why we have lawyers.
All right. Well,
Sometimes when you're lucky, you have more than one.
I'm supposed to.
She's a lawyer too.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I think that's gonna be the intent is, yes, if there are any changes that are gonna be proposed, then we would accept public comment on those.
On those changes, yeah.
On the changes. Okay, I'm supposed to ask if there's any public comment on non-agenda planning and zoning items or discussion of planning-related issues.
Don't hate me. Okay, so we, next month, will need to have a vote on chair and vice chair for the commission. Yes, it's already January.
Gosh.
I know. And so be thinking of what you want to do in terms of that, to make a motion on both a chair and a vice chair. We have another item that we haven't published notice on yet. It's a county-initiated item to rezone a small portion of area that is currently zoned C2, that's all residential. And so we're trying to help correct some problems with the zoning in that area, because everybody that lives there, if they have insurance issue or when they sell their house, there's been some problems with the appraisals on that. Or if the house were to be destroyed, then there's problems with rebuilding because of the zoning. And so we were looking at doing a little area-wide rezoning. That is a county initiated. It's not an item that's been submitted by a specific person. And so because this is going to defer until next month, we may or may not hear hear that item. We'll discuss that in our office tomorrow and decide what we're gonna do, but that may be a topic next month. It could draw some people, because I think, how many property owners are there? 10 to 12? Yeah, I think like 10 to 12 property owners are affected by it.
Could be a full meeting next month.
It could be. Yeah, so it may be that it's better to wait on that. And do we have anything else that's been submitted? I don't think so. So that was the only other item. So, I think that at this point, probably best case scenario would be we can reconsider the solar and then we wait on the other item until March. Okay. All right. I think that's it. I mean, I want to remind everybody, we're now the Land Use and Development Department. Actually, I have a couple of things. Land Use and Development, the planning at snco.us email still works. So if you send an email there, we get it. The county is converting our websites, our email, all of that from .us to .gov. So all of our old .us, so like all of our email addresses currently are .us. They are going to convert them to .gov, but when they do so, the .us will still work. Well, what happened was when we created the Land Use and Development website, they've created the email as ludev@snco.gov, but because it was not already a .us address, if you send it to .us, it won't go through. And so that was on the website as .us versus .gov, and so some people had sent emails and had realized that they weren't going through. We've corrected that, but if you get a bounce back saying that it didn't go through, try again to one of the other email addresses. They're all still there, and we've received everything that we can tell so far. Also, Board of County Commission meetings have been moved back to Thursdays. So they had been moved to Mondays this year, but now we're moving them back to Thursdays. So it doesn't affect you guys, but it does affect the cases we hear. So instead of coming on a Monday, they will now come back on a Thursday. That won't affect this right away. So solar, once we hear it in February, then in March, it would go in on a Thursday date. So just those couple of notes. Anyways, that's it.
All right. If there's no further business, we're adjourned.